Very exciting and very important event now. After completing 2 parallel sessions back to back, in between there was a lunch. So I will just give you a background of the purpose of the policy colloquium, which we will continue for next 1 hour and 15 minutes. Let me introduce again myself. I'm Professor Shahidul Haque, Director of South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance and Chair of the Department of Political Science and Sociology. These are the 2 main departments who are organizing this conference. So we have very distinguished guests within ourselves. Before inviting them to come to podium, I will just let you know that what we are expecting out of it. As you know that whenever we organize international conferences in academic institutions and universities, people ask us and they tell us that you always talk about theories, ideas, concepts, and very superficial things. We don't talk about the real life things because we are the academicians, we are not the practitioners. So this issue is so important for Bangladesh, the Rohingya crisis. That's why we thought that it is very important to also know that what the practitioners are thinking about the immediate solution of this very big problem. And in keeping that in mind, we designed this session a little bit with a heavy panel. But the purpose is we would be like to listening from different international development agencies and also national organizations, how they are perceiving the crisis now and how do they see the solutions from their own practical point of view. And also we invited few experts. So let me introduce them at first. We have within ourselves as the chief guest of the program, Mr. Mohammad Shahidul Haque, Senior Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of People's Republic of Bangladesh, and who has a very long track record working with refugees not only in Bangladesh but also globally. So he will be the chief guest today. The moderator of the program will be Professor Salahuddin Aminuzzaman, one of our senior professor at North South University, and in my view, one of the best moderator in the country for holding this kind of policy colloquium in terms of managing time. You will be seeing him. And then we have almost 6 panelists. We had one panelist, Her Excellency Mia Sepo, but because of her illness, she couldn't come. We have Mr. Alistair Boulton, Assistant Regional Representative from UNHCR. And then we have Mr. Girogi Gigauri, Country Representative of IOM. And we have within ourselves Dr. Kipgen. He is a Myanmar Specialist. He was born in Myanmar, but he is now a US citizen and living in India, teaching at University at OP Jindal. We have Dr. Saleemul Huq. I'm sure many of you know him. He's a very important environmental expert of this country. We have Mr. M Morshed, Director of BRAC. And also definitely we have our keynote speaker, Dr. Hamid Albar, also as a panelist. So can I now request all the panelists to come and take their seats in the dais? And please, moderator, if you can lead them.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, my name is Salahuddin M. I'm an advisor of the South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance Institute, and I'll be the moderator of this session. And Professor Tawfiq has given an attribute to me, and that is I'm a good time master. Well, that's how it should be done because all institutions are there. So, as you know, that exactly we have very important session. One, because we have the diversity of experts around us. So before I start, let me request our panelists to introduce themselves very briefly. Could you?
Good afternoon, I'm Morshed. I work for BRAC.
Good morning, Girogi Gigauri, IOM Chief Commissioner.
My name is Salahuddin M, as I said. Honorable.
My name is Shahidul Haque. I work for the Government of Malaysia.
My name is
Alistair Boulton. I'm with UNHCR, the regional office in Bangkok.
Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saleemul Huq. I'm Director of the International Center for Islamic Change and Development at the Independent University of Bangladesh. Next door to me.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Nehginpao Kipgen. I'm a Burmese American. I currently teach in India, OP Jindal Global University as Associate Professor, Assistant Dean, and Executive Director for Center for Southeast Asian Studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let me just set the context of this panel of discussion that we'll have tomorrow, this afternoon. The first of all is that we are well aware that if I can use the reference from UNHCR, at this point of time, all over the world, we have about 25.9 million of refugees. Something wrong somewhere. 29.5 million refugees around the world. So that is an alarming number. And we also learned from UNHCR that nearly 1% is forcibly displaced every 2 seconds as a result of conflict, persecution in the world. So that's really alarming figure. And at this point of time, until March 2019, so we have about almost 1 million people from Rohingya. People are here and concentrated in Bukhiya technology. So now the fact is that refugees, they're human beings, and they need care, they need attention, and in a civilized world, they deserve basic human treatment with appropriate level of human dignity. That is the context that we should remind. Now we have already get acquainted with our panelists. Now, as you know that we had a keynote speaker, and no less than Sri Syed Hamid Arulfar. Now, we are passionately listening to his presentation, and if you permit me, Dr. Alvar, I have drawn 9 points from your presentation, and I may not have touched some of those, but broadly 9 points. That perhaps will help us to understand the context. What he has argued, if I may quote him, he says, we have understood the symptoms of Rohingya crisis, but substantive and sustainable solutions are not in the horizon. That's the first point emerged. Second, we need to understand the concern of the Rohingya people as regards security and overall politics on Rohingya crisis. The second argument, observation. Third observation was, we need an international narrative, the Myanmar narrative. Fourth, he also found that sustainable solution would depend on, I quote and unquote him, a proper understanding of the root causes. Fifth, he observed that solution lies in the realistic, quote unquote, honest and truthful understanding of the issue. Sixth, Dr. Alvar again argues that there is space for the regional actors and also the global powers to devise a sustainable solution. Seventh, there is also a potential of forming a joint working group to negotiate with China and other key stakeholders. And 8th point that I have not observed from this presentation is that collective initiative of ASEAN and even could possibly be an option. And finally, what I got from him, that he also mentioned that we should really explore the potential of implementing Kofi Annan report. And in his point of view, this was being carried forward further by our advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. H.D. Mount. He also emphasized the need for unfolding the 5 points propositions being made by Honorable Prime Minister in the UN sessions. This is the context. Now, having the context here, Now we have panelists. So we would request our panelists, starting from the left, that all right, this is the context. Now we are looking for a sustainable solution of the problem. From your experience, and your professional background, what are your views and take, given the context of a sustainable solution? And let me remind the audience that Honorable Secretary, Foreign Secretary has said that he will listen all of this, including the questions, and then we take. All right, shall I start with Mr. Morshed?
Thank you. This is really a $1 million, maybe 20 years question, which I don't, which I don't have an answer to. Really, I'm being very honest. I can tell that how things can go sour from here. Like, what is the solution? I don't know, but what is not the solution that I can probably share a few points. One is, even if we talk about 200 people a day repatriation, considering the population growth in the camp, we are actually looking at more than 20 years of time for repatriation of the entire population. So 200 people a day, 1,000 people a week, 52 weeks is roughly. So that needs to be somehow, factored in. So we probably need to prepare ourselves to be able to address this in a timely fashion. It cannot be done quickly, and the confusion that whether this entire population can leave within 2 years or 20 years, I think is creating a uncertainty in the mind of Rohingyas, in the mind of respondents, and it creates an uncertainty among the people. So this is one thing, uncertainty and hopelessness, that can make the situation sour. My first point. Second point is, not that the Rohingyas are not fleeing the camp. There are media reports of 200 people per day fleeing the camp. Why people are staying? Those who are staying? Because that's the best option. The food is available, treatment is available, and so on and so forth. So they cannot get a better livelihood by leaving the camp. This can change if the international attention to this crisis goes away. Currently, we have 35–40% of the JRP funded. Next year, if it is less, the funding, lack of the care can hamper the hopefulness, if you may, or can make alternative livelihood more attractive, which may drive some of the Rohingyas or make it more lucrative for Rohingyas to try and go out of the camp. And if that happens, then the able-bodied men will go out first. The Rohingya camp will then become a old home, and that's dangerous. Old home and old and young woman home, that would be dangerous for that context. The third thing is their ability to work. Work is not about money alone. Work is about self-worth. Work is about whether they can, live for tomorrow, whether they look forward to something going forward. If that is not allowed, now I'm not saying that we just give them work willy-nilly, and so I'm not talking about what is sustainable in the long term. I'm saying if we don't do it, then it becomes uncertain. If they can't work, if they don't have tomorrow to look forward to, then there is every possibility that it can become sour. It can become, that we have seen in many refugee conditions context globally. So that doesn't happen, we probably need to find a way to get these people looking forward to something for tomorrow, create self-worth get engaged into something which is meaningful. So these are the 3 points that I think engagement. So if this 3 doesn't happen, I'm afraid that there can be elements, anti-social elements, anti-state elements who can use this community, take advantage of their hopelessness, their lack of direction, their lack of tomorrow, and get them involved into activities which you don't.
Thank you very much. It's definitely, I would say, more than $1 million question. It's at least a $5 billion question, and that's just so far. So after the Second World War, with the emergence of the Marshall Plan and different structured loans and money flowing into post-World War Europe, we saw a lot of development and progression towards good governance and respect of human rights. And this was one of the elements that led development practitioners to a conclusion that money can lead to respect of human rights. In other words, if there's a problem and you throw enough money at it, that will resolve the problem. I think we have many examples around the world that clearly demonstrate this is not the case. I think it's also the case we're dealing with now. Some of you may be familiar with the so-called Rosenthal report, which looked at what UN, where did it go wrong for the UN and some other key players in Myanmar in terms of the recent crisis. So to understand what to do in the future, looking forward, we have to look back. And we have to understand the history, and we have to know the history of the Rohingyas very well. We specifically have to know very well specifically the first influx, the second influx, the reasons behind it, and the root causes of this crisis. Our aim is not just the return of Rohingyas, it's the dignified and sustainable return. We want them to return and live and thrive in their homeland, and not to be back here in 5 or 10 years from now. So that if we learn anything from history, I think this is one of the lessons we have to take on board. So one element that I would really like to highlight is, do we have the right approach when we're discussing this issue? Is it a matter of throwing more money in development projects? Will that resolve? Will that address the root causes of this displacement and of this conflict on the other side? And I think it is instructive to look at also naturally the Rakhine Commission, the Rosenthal report, and let's look at the mistakes we made as the international community. Let's talk about what could have been done differently from our side, and then structure our support. But ultimately, there can only be one solution to this crisis. The problem can only be solved where it started, and the only outcome of this can be the return of Rohingyas to their home.
Now you just mentioned about sustainable return. Could you just further clarify what it is and what it means and what are the components and process?
By sustainable return, we simply mean that the Rohingyas are able to return